Starting. You been okay, Govinda Hari Prabhu? Getting enough prasadam?
Yeah.
What did you do for prasadam today?
I cooked pasta.
We also need pasta too. That's good. I was telling the devotees here that when we're in India, we go to the restaurants and we have all Western preparations, pasta and lasagna and things. And then we come to Hungary and you go to the devotee restaurants and it's all Indian things. Kind of Indian. It's not really Indian.
Yeah.
It's fun. We'll go ahead and start then. Gora Draganya Gana Gocha Goloru Haram Goranga Guditama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gadarati Dam Yati Singha Gora Govinya Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemana Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoya Mara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambu Jabhakti Labhya Prema Bidhana Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madhgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Risha Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatapta Brajabala Vapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyahevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I want to thank everybody for taking part today. So we're starting a new chapter today. This is chapter 9 in the new Embankment of Separation, which doesn't exist yet. You guys are getting a preview of it. This is chapter 9, which would normally be chapter 6 in the previous edition, which we're reprinting right now. And this is called The Loving Play of Lord Jagannath. And let's see here. I want to put... So this is taken from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and what I want to do mostly in this session is just speak some about Lord Jagannath and about Puri, and just kind of explain and just explore a little bit, might be a better way to put it, what Guru Maharaj is speaking about. We'll get into some details which are not given in the book, but mostly we'll just be understanding it from some different perspectives. So Madhavananda, would you like to start reading? And I just want to stop. Can you see my cursor, the end of the word wooden form, into the words? I'm going to stop there. You just want to read those first few sentences.
Okay. The loving play of Lord Jagannath. In his 𝙬𝙗𝑏hagavatamrita, Srila Sanatana Goswami has written about Lord Jagannath and Jagannath Puri Dham. He has picked a personality named Gopakumar, and everything is being described through him. While staying in Vrindavan, Gopakumar met some very elevated sadhus coming from the southern countries. They explained to Gopakumar, in Jagannath Puri Dham, also known as Purushottama Kshetra, Bhagavan Jagannath Dev is manifested as daru-brahma. Daru-brahma Shakshad Bhagavan. Daru means that the Lord appears in a wooden form.
So let's just stop for a couple of minutes. Let's look in the 𝙬𝙗𝑏hagavatamrita, which Sanatana Goswami has given some description of this. And he's also given some different verses from different Puranas and things. In 𝙬𝙗𝑏hagavatamrita, in the second canto, chapter 1, text 159, he says, daru-brahma Jagannatho Bhagavan Purushottame Chaitanyilachale Chara Vrindavan Tire Virajate. That there in Jagannath Puri, that personality who's daru-brahma Jagannatha, he's the Lord of the universe in a wooden form. He's there on Chara Vrindavan Tire Virajate, on the bank of the salt ocean. And Sanatana Goswami has given an elaborate commentary on his own 𝙬𝙗𝑏hagavatamrita, and he's given some verses to support his statements. First of all, in his purport, he speaks about why Lord Jagannath is called Daru, and he says because Daru is the same as the word Dharanat, which means to destroy. And he destroys the miseries of material existence. Now, I want to just go through his short purport on this with just a few different verses. And then I want to go to a very little-known book called the Mahaprasadam Vidya, which is a Stala Purana, Sanskrit Stala Purana, in Jagannath Puri, which speaks about Lord Jagannath as daru-brahma. And Sanatana Goswami seems to be saying basically the same thing. In the Padma Purana, he quotes a verse, Samudra Shyotare Tire Ashti Sri Purushottame Purananda Mayam Brahma Daru Braja Sarira Brit. At Sri Purushottam, on the northern shore of the ocean, resides the supreme absolute truth, full of perfect ecstasy. He's assumed a transcendental body that appears wooden. Purnananda Mayam Brahma Daru Braja Sarira Brit. Purnananda Mayam. He's full of this Purnananda, and Brahma Daru Braja Sarira Brit. He has this transcendental body, this Sarira, which appears to be wooden. And then he quotes a Brihad Vishnu Purana, Niladro Chokkale Deshi Chaitre Shri Purushottame Darunyaste Chidanando Jagannathakya Murtina. In the land of Orissa, on the Blue Mountain, at Sri Purushottam Chaitra, the ecstatic and all-spiritual Lord is present in wood, and his form known as Jagannath. So in the 12th issue of our Krishna Katamrita magazine, we, which maybe I've got right here actually, I think I do. Yeah. We made an issue which we called The Hidden Identity of Lord Jagannath. And in an article with the same title, we went through all the different identities of Lord Jagannath and how he's understood by so many different persons in so many different ways. And in the article, and as I mentioned, called The Hidden Identity of Lord Jagannath, we started off as something we'll look at in a minute, how Lord Jagannath is the head of state. And he's, politicians speak about him as God. And that's one conception they have of Jagannath. Jagannath he's the the Lord of Orissa. And he's, for some people, he's a cultural figure. But in this book, this little-known book called Mahaprusha Vidya, it glorifies Purushottam Ketra, and it stresses how Jagannath is a deity for this age, and it gives an interesting explanation of the word daru, of wood. G.K. Tripathi, who one Indian scholar, famous scholar on Lord Jagannath, one of the foremost scholars on Lord Jagannath, secular scholars, he commented that there's only 4 known manuscripts of this book that are known to exist. It's actually a very, very rare book. So this book describes how the shape of Jagannath is a primeval shape of Vishnu, out of which his different incarnations come. And his body consists of daru, and he gives an explanation very similar to what Sanatana Goswami says. Sanatana Goswami says that he's known as daru because he's daranat, because he destroys. And in the Mahapurusha Vidya, it says that dar means to cut. He cuts the miseries of this world, and he imparts daru, to give eternal bliss. And the Mahapurusha Vidya goes on to explain how in the first half day of Lord Brahma, in the second half of the first day, the Sweta Varaha Kalpa, it's this form of Lord Jagannath, this daru-brahma, which fulfills the desires of devotees. So the Mahapurusha Vidya then it defines daru like this, and uses the same word Sanatana Goswami is using, which makes us suspect that Sanatana Goswami had some access to this book. They had access to many, many different literatures. So because the verse begins with the word daranat, which is the same word that Sanatana Goswami uses to define Lord Jagannath. Daranat sarva dukkanam, same exact point. Daranat, to destroy sarva dukka, all unhappiness. Daranat sarva dukkanam akandananda dhanata. Padmajaham sada daru samsayo nasti chatrivai. Because Jagannath, Daranat sarva dukkanam, he breaks apart all miseries. He gives akandananda dhanata, he gives uninterrupted bliss. Therefore, sada daru, he's always called daru. And samsayo nasti chatrivai, you should have no samsaya, no doubt about this. Daratyeva dukkani dadatyananda avyayam tasmat sabhavato daru ena vedena nishtitam. And it describes that Jagannath, because he's daratyeva dukkani, he breaks apart all different miseries. Dadatyananda avyayam, he gives us this great bliss. Because of that, tasmat svabhavato, because that's his nature, therefore daru ena vedena nishtitam. He's called daru in the Vedic literatures. So let's go back to what Gromars is reading. And Vana, maybe you can read some more. Does that make sense to everybody? What is daru? Mukunda, what did you understand from that?
Well, one thing that came out was you mentioned it's a deity of this age. I never knew that Lord Jagannath was, by the name Daru, meaning that it was someone who was giving away material miseries from. I never knew that. I just thought he's the Lord and he's worshipable deity of this age.
Hold on for a second.
Not realizing.
I'll repeat what he's saying. He was just saying that he never knew that the word daru, daranat, means someone who breaks apart miseries and gives bliss. Go ahead, Prabhuji.
Yeah, basically, that's what I wanted to say. I never knew that, it meant that. I always thought that daru is just like the wooden form of Lord Jagannath. That's all it represents.
Interesting thing. Kibana, anything? Okay, let's go ahead and read some more. There we go. So we finished up with wooden form. On the shore of the sea,
On the shore of the sea, upon the blue mountain known as Nilachal, stands the temple of Jagannath. Jagannath is very opulent, and he is also Bhakta Vatsala, very affectionate to his devotees, residing in the land of Odisha.
Let's just,
He, per-
keep reading actually for just the next sentence.
he personally maintains that land and manifests his glories there.
So Guru Maharaj is paraphrasing, sorry about that. Guru Maharaj is paraphrasing Sanatana Goswami. I also went through and I found some pictures which I'd forgotten about, which I wanted to show you guys too. Some nice artwork of Lord Jagannath. Here we go. This is from a contemporary painting, and you can see Prabhuji, Krishna Kund. Here's Jagannath Baladi Subhadra, his daros. And let's see, here's something else I need to show too.
Interesting, Subhadra is higher than Jagannath.
I like this. Here's another painting, which I don't know who did this, but it looks to me like it was done by a Gaudiya Vaishnav. I'm going to share it on the screen here. You can see the wooden form of the Lord and how they're envisioning this tree as a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And you see that you have the creeper going around it, which our Goswami is describing. Krishna is like the tree. And this is, we'll get into this more in the next chapter, 3 Logs of Wood, which probably most of you are more familiar with. And we'll say something about Srimati Radharani and Lord Jagannath. And some article we wrote also on here, some devotees, they ask, well, how is it that Lord Jagannath is Vrindavan Bihari? If he's Vrindavan Krishna, then where's Srimati Radharani? And we address that point somewhat there. So I also want to show you one other picture. I've got a lot of pictures here, but I'm just going to show a few. Let's see. Well, maybe we'll show this one. This is a beautiful picture of Lord Jagannath. The only time they allow photos of Jagannath is during the Rath Yatra when he comes outside. And so you can see Sri Devi, Lord Jagannath's consort down at his feet here. And Jagannath dressed, this is his Bada Shringara Vesh. When he's dressed up in the evening, you see the gopis and you see this cloth on his head. This is the 𝙬𝙬𝙤𝙬 Kandua, which we've got in our bag over here. And one of the Pandits, Puja Pandits, is offering obeisances to Lord Jagannath here. Yeah, this is our 𝙬𝙬𝙤𝙬 Kandua. This is mahaprasad from Lord Jagannath. One of the pujaris who dresses Jagannath gave me that. And let's see, I have another picture also of Jagannath. We're going to speak something about prasadam. So maybe I'll, this next picture I'll show at that time. Yeah, but there's, this is a photo that was done somewhere around between 1880 and 1890 by a Britisher named William Henry Cornish. Let me put it on the screen. It's one of the oldest photos known of the Jagannath Mandir. Actually, interestingly, the Jagannath Mandir is a little similar to this today. They had some library over here. I'm kind of moving my cursor, not library, but bookshop, which later was broken. Now they've got, none of these little shops are there, but they've got a big expansive area around it. But still, this Aruna Stamba, it's not a Garuda Stamba, but the Aruna Stamba of 𝙎𝙬𝙖𝙢 is out in front of the temple. So this is probably more or less what it looked like at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'm going to stop there. And I'd like then to go on and speak a little bit here. So Guru Maharaj is saying how Jagannath personally maintains the land of Orissa. And it's an amazing thing, when you arrive even in West Bengal, in Kolkata, you'll see big pictures of Lord Jagannath in the airport. Lord Jagannath is very, very popular in West Bengal and especially in Orissa. And Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he writes, Maha Vibhutiman Rajyam Utkalam Palayam Swayam Vyanjayan Nija Mahatmyan Sada Sevaka Vatsalaha. He says that Lord Jagannath is Maha Vibhutiman. Vibhuti means opulence. And man means someone who possesses. Maha Vibhutiman. He is the great possessor, the possessor of great opulence. Rajam Utkalam. And he's the personal ruler, Rajam Utkalam, of Utkal, or of Orissa. He's personally ruling over it. Palaya means to rule or to maintain. Palayan Swayam, he himself is doing that. Vyanjanayan Nija Mahatmyam, and by doing that, he is exhibiting Vyanjayan, his own Mahatmya, his own glories, in Sadasevaka Vatsala, with great affection. Sadasevaka Vatsala, he's always taking care of his servants, his devotees. So Utkal is another name for Orissa. It means literally, Ut means great, and Kala means art. It's a place of great art. Lord Jagannath, Sanatana Goswami explains, personally rules that kingdom. He gives the commands and guidelines for all the citizens' conduct of behavior and things. And Sanatana Goswami in his commentary quotes the Tattva Yamala. Bharate chotkale deshe bhu swage purushotame daru-rupi jagannatho bhaktanam abhayam prada. Now the chastan upadaya ashte mokshaika karaka. The Tattva Yamala, which is one of the Yamala Shastras, Vaishnava Yamala, describes how in Bharate chotkale deshe, in Bharat, in India, there's the kingdom of Utkal, which Bhusvarge Purushotame, it's known as Bhusvarga Purushottam. It's Purushottam Ketra, but it's Bhusvarga. It's the Bhu means the earth, and Svarga means the heavenly planet. So it's the heavenly, earthly place in Purushottam. And there in this place, daru-rupi Jagannatho, Lord Jagannath manifests his form as daru-rup. He has a wooden form. Bhaktanam abhayam prada. He acts like a human being. And abhaya prada, he gives fearlessness to all of his devotees. And he says that Nana Chestam Upadaya Asti Mokshaka Karaka. Asti Mokshaka Karaka. He's the only person who gives liberation. So in different parts of the world, we hear about different heads of state, the president or the prime minister of a country. But when and you'll see their pictures when if you go into a U.S. embassy, you'll see the picture of Mr. Biden. He's the current president of the United States. If you go to a Russian embassy, you'll see a picture of Mr. Putin. But when you go to Jagannath Puri, what do you see everywhere? You see Lord Jagannath everywhere, on all the billboards and the buses and the train stations and all the different shops and selling Coca-Cola and every kind of thing you can imagine. So historically, Lord Jagannath has long been officially known as a Rashtra Devata. Rashtra Devata means that he's the official deity, the official deity, Devata of the Rashtra, of the state. And it was in 1230 AD, long before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Gajapati Maharaj, the king, Maharaj Ananga Bhimdev II, he declared himself, he said that actually I'm just a Rauta. Rauta means that like the deputy. In Jagannath, he's the real king. He made an official proclamation like that. And he even, when he got his coronation, as we would say in the West, he became the king. They have a ceremony. We hear about it in Valmiki Ramayana, when Lord Ramachandra became the king of Ayodhya, that they bathe in the water from all the different oceans and they chant mantras and things. So they had that ceremony for Maharaja Nanda Bhimdev, and he refused it. And he said, actually, it's Lord Jagannath who's in charge. So that took place in 1230 AD, long time ago. So for so long, Lord Jagannath has been understood to be the Rashtra Devata, or the actual leader of Orissa. And it says in 𝙭𝙀𝑉𝑇 also that he's always protecting the residents of Orissa. They're very, very dear to him, and he's always protecting them. So, Bhanu Biharni, I'm sorry, I've been just torturing you, reading a little bit. Would you like to read a little more from where you left off? Let's see. I think we manifested land and manifest his glories there. Yeah, that's it. Okay, in that dham.
In that dham, no one else cooks food for Jagannath but Swayam Lakshmi Devi. Jagannath personally eats it, and his remnants, known as mahaprasad, are distributed to innumerable devotees. Such mahaprasad is available there in Jagannath Puri Dham. Even the great demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Shiva are greedy for it. If they can get this Jagannath Prasad, they become very happy. Even if a Chandala, a dog eater, touches that Mahaprasad, it can never be polluted. It is so transcendental that even if it falls from the mouth of a dog, it is still not polluted. Therefore, anyone can touch it and take it thousands and thousands of miles to any part of the world, yet it never becomes polluted. You can accept it because it is transcendental. Such is Jagannath's Prasad.
So I'd like to speak a little bit about prasadam. So first of all, this chapter, Guru Maharaj now, he's kind of shifting gears in Embankment of Separation. And these last chapters, chapter 9, 10, 11, and 12, these last 4 chapters are going to be focusing on Jagannath Puri and Lord Jagannath. And we're hearing some of the basic principles about Lord Jagannath from Sanatana Goswami in 𝙭𝙀𝙀, how he's daru-brahma, what that daru means. It's not just an ordinary wooden form, but daru means dharanath, or that personality who destroys all miseries and gives all bliss. That's Lord Jagannath. And we'll hear in the next chapter, in 3 logs of wood, how Lord Jagannath is Madhurja Rasaganaiti Murti. He's a condensed form of conjugal mellow. And therefore, because he has that highest bliss, he's able to give that bliss. And in particular, it's mentioning about Mahaprasad. Now, for Hare Krishna devotees, you may think, big deal, right? We're here with Govinda Hari Prabhu. And Govinda Hari Prabhu, he made pasta today. Usually we go to the restaurant here in Debrecen. He made pasta today. And he offered it up. And whatever was on the plate, you may say that was the Mahaprasad. Right? But if you go to Jagannath Puri and you offer some panda, some local person, some prasad, and you say, this is Mahaprasad from Radhesham in Vrindavan or Radhesham here in Hungary, they may become annoyed with you and chastise you because they'll say, no, it's only Mahaprasad here in Jagannath Puri. They'll say it's prasad in other places, but it's only Mahaprasad here. And there's 7 different characteristics of Jagannath Mahaprasad, which we wrote some article about that in our magazine about Mahaprasad. I'm not going to go into that so much. 6 different stages of Mahaprasad, 6 different things that they do, beginning with they call Lakshmi Devi to personally cook. And Guru Maharaj makes some comment about that. So I'd like to, what is so special, what is so particular about that? For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, 3 dhams are very, very important. Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham, and Jagannath Puri Dham. These are the 3 places where Mahaprabhu particularly performed his pastimes. And we know from Srinath Chakravarti Thakur in his introduction to his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Aradhya Bhagavan Bhaje Satanyasta Dhamma Vrindavanam, that for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the topmost abode is Vrindavan. So we understand Jagannath Puri and Mayapur in connection with Vrindavan. And we'll get into that a little later. For some of you, like Bhanu Biharni, I think you've heard me speak about this a lot in Jagannath Puri. So a lot of this will be kind of review for you, but I hope you'll also pick up a few new things. I know Krishna Kun, she heard me speaking about some of these topics, and after like 5 or 6 years of hearing the same topic, probably for the 100th time or something, she said, wow, you know, I just realized another aspect. Now I'm finally starting to understand it. It takes some time for a lot of these things to sink in. So please don't mind if these are topics that you've heard already before somewhat. So these 3 Dhams are the most important for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And these 3 Dhams have different qualities. And we'll speak more elaborately about that later on. But Vrindavan Dham is Madhurja Mayi Dham. It's that place which is where Madhurja Ras is pervading. Directly, Anvaya Vratirekabhyam, directly or indirectly, all the different pastimes in Jagannath, in Vrindavan, are connected with Madhurja Ras. The cowherd boys are going and playing with Krishna, and that's enhancing the Madhurja Ras of Radha and Krishna and the gopis. And how so? Because Mother Yashoda, when she wakes up Krishna in the morning, and she sees lipstick on Krishna and different things from the gopis, she thinks it's from the cowherd boys. They're being rough with him, and Krishna has a bruise on his face or something like that. And so in that way, it enhances Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. Also, Krishna goes to herd to cows with the boys, but while he's out there, then he gets some chance. They all take a nap, and then Krishna sneaks off to go and see the gopis. And similarly, the Ratak and Patrak, who are dressing Krishna, they're also helping to enhance the Madhurja Ras, because Krishna dresses like a transcendental actor, which is so attractive to Srimati Radharani. And Mother Yashoda also enhances the Madhurja Ras because she has a very special personality cooking for Krishna every day, who's Srimati Radharani. So it's Madhurja Mayi Dham. It's a place where everything is pervaded with this Madhurja Mayi Rasa. And it's that Vrindavan which is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is hankering for. And these other Dhams of Mayapur and Jagannath Puri, they're special because of their connection with Vrindavan. Because Mayapur and Jagannath Puri are both manifestations of Vrindavan, different aspects of Vrindavan. We might say different compartments of Vrindavan. I don't know if we'll get into that subject directly later on or not. That's kind of a real postgraduate subject. But we might, if somebody remembers it, not in this session, but when we, maybe in our next session or the session after that, we'll speak something about the nature of Jagannath Puri Dham. And if anybody remembers that offhand comment that I made and you're really eager to know more about it, take a note of it and we can try to explain something more about the difference between these Dhams, Mayapur and Jagannath Puri, and why they're also connected and known as Gupta Vrindavan. So Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham. Vrindavan Dham is Madhurja Mayi Dham. Mayapur Dham is 𝙎𝙧𝙞𝙀 Dham. It's a place of 𝙎𝙧𝙀 Leela. It's a place of great merciful pastimes. And Jagannath Puri, as we'll hear in this chapter a little later, we find there are 3 things in this Dham. There's Aishvarya, or Sanatana Goswami describes Maha Aishvarya. There's great, great opulence, but there's also great mercy. And we see Lord Jagannath, he comes out of the temple. In all the temples in India, Lord Jagannath is the only original form of the deity who comes out. Other temples, there's a Vijay Vigraha, a smaller deity who comes out. But the only Jagannath temple is the only traditional temple where the original form of the deity comes out every year for Rath Yatra. So he's known as Petit Pavan. He's so very, very merciful. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the other deity of Jagannath Puri, he also performs very, very merciful pastimes in Jagannath Puri. So Jagannath Puri has a quality of Aishvarya, opulence, and 𝙎𝙧𝙀, but it also has the quality of Madhurja. And we find that in the Gambhira, which will be the last chapter of Embankment of Separation. And we'll hear something about the sweetness of Jagannath Puri. So these 3 Dhams have these 3 qualities. Now again, these 3 Dhams each have a particular special vishesha or quality to them. Vrindavan Dham is known for the Braj Duli, for the dust. And if somebody goes to Vrindavan, traditionally, from the small village somewhere in India or something, people ask them, will you bring back some dust for me? And when they come back to their village, traditionally, the whole village would come and they would tell stories of Vrindavan and what happened there. And they would give everyone some dust and maybe some water from Radhakund and water from the Jamuna and like that. So that Braj Duli, or that dust, is a special quality of Vrindavan Dham. There's also Duli, or dust, in Mayapur. And there's also Duli, or dust, in Jagannath Puri. But the Duli, the dust in Vrindavan, is considered very, very special. Because in Vrindavan, Krishna puts his feet everywhere. And in Vrindavan, we find that both Lord Brahma and Uddhava, they pray to take birth as a creeper, a plant, in Vrindavan, just so they can get the dust. And why is the dust so special? Partly because Krishna's putting his feet there, but even more than that, because the gopis are putting their feet there. So it has the duli, the dust of the gopis. The quality, the special quality, Vishesh, of Mayapur Dham is kirtan. There's also kirtan in Vrindavan, there's also kirtan in Jagannath Puri. But Mayapur is a place where Sankirtanaika Pitaro, the father of the Sankirtan movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, appeared. So Mayapur Dham is especially known for kirtan. And Jagannath Puri is especially known for prasad. And there's also prasad in Vrindavan, there's also prasad in Mayapur. But the prasad in Jagannath Puri is very, very special. And it's known as mahaprasad. It's known as mahaprasad, as I mentioned, because maybe I should just go through it very quickly in my article here. There's 6 different steps which we learned from the Pandits in the Jagannath Mandir. The first is that Lakshmi Devi, they chant some mantra to have Lakshmi Devi personally come to cook for Lord Jagannath. And Guru Maharaj makes a note of that. What are we reading? He says that, in that dham, no one else cooks food for Jagannath but Swayam Lakshmi Devi. Now, you may doubt that because in Jagannath Puri, there's a certain caste of Brahmins, of Pandits, who, what are they known? Our friend in our very obnoxious friend in Alarnath, passed away. Sudar, yeah, what's his last name? Yeah, he's a, my brain's not working today. Anyway, they're the cooks for Lord Jagannath. So it seems like they're cooking, but in actuality, when we were working on this magazine about Mahaprasad, sorry? Swaras, that's it. Yeah. They're called Swaras, or cooks. So when they get up in the morning, one of the first things they do is they chant some mantra calling Lakshmi Devi to come and cook. When we were working on this magazine, we were going through a lot of different books in Oriya and Sanskrit, and we found in one book published by one of the Pandits of the temple, the mantra that they used to call Lakshmi Devi. And we didn't print it. We did not. And the reason why is because our Sanskrit editor at the time, Hari Parsha Prabhu, he protested. He said, this is not pure Sanskrit. It's a mixture of something. And we want to be very pukka. So we decided not to print it. In retrospect, I'm a little unhappy with that. I'd like to print it because I have a new conception about that after some thought. That Lord Jagannath has his own special procedure in Orissa. And even his mantra is half Sanskrit and half Oriya. So the first thing is that they call Lakshmi Devi to personally come and cook. And Guru Maharaj has commented that it's Lakshmi Devi who's cooking, nobody else is cooking, and they have that understanding. There's a king of Puri, I think it was Raj Mukunda Dev, if I'm not mistaken the name, who used to cook for Lord Jagannath. And he was very happy. He would personally cook and bring those things to the temple. And one day when he brought his offering to the temple, he saw that all the demigods had come, and all the demigods were making offerings to Lord Jagannath, and everything was personally cooked by Lakshmi Devi. And here he was with his little his little thing, and he kind of felt embarrassed. We were speaking about Sudama Vipra the other day. Kind of felt like Sudama Vipra in Dwarka with his chipped whites, and he just kind of went to turn away. And Lakshmi Devi said, "No. You're." And Jagannath said, "Your prasadam is also very, very special. I want this thing." So that's the first stage. They Lakshmi Devi personally cooks for Jagannath. They chant a mantra for her. They also perform some yajna, and they call a sacred fire called Vaishnavagni. And it's from that fire sacrifice that they take the fire to light all the different stoves, because all Jagannath, they don't cook for him over electricity or gas, but they cook for him over wood. So the first step is they call Lakshmi Devi. The second step is that they put all the cooked food, after it's been cooked for the main offering at noon, they put it on a golden plate on top of a Sri Yantra. And they put that next to Lord Jagannath's Bhoga Mandap. So that's the second special thing. This golden plate, which takes part, there's so many stories about Jagannath Mahaprasad. A number of them have to do with this golden plate. Sometimes Lord Jagannath personally comes and steals that plate with prasadam on it and takes that to some of his devotees who are hungry or something. Bishar Mahanti, there's a famous story about Lord Jagannath's friend Bishar Mahanti. He does like that. So that golden plate is a very special quality of it. And also the Sri Yantra. We don't normally find that in every temple. We don't normally find that Lakshmi Devi's being called in the Sri Yantra and the golden plate. The third thing is that they have a Patal and a Shringa mantra that they chant for Lord Nrsingadev just before they do their bhoga. That's the fourth thing. The fifth thing is that they offer. The fourth thing, that was the third thing. The fourth thing is that when they offer bhoga to Lord Jagannath, they use the 18-syllable Gopal mantra. That we also chant that, and some other temples do too. But the Patal Nrsinga mantra and the Sri Yantra, the golden plate, and Lakshmi Devi's mantra being called, those are very special. So at this point, after they've offered the Lord Jagannath with this Gopal mantra, then it's considered prasad. But it's not considered mahaprasad. After they offer it then to Lord Jagannath, they put it on a Bhairavi chakra, which is a symbol for Bhairavi Devi, and they offer it to Goddess Bimala Devi in her temple inside the Jagannath Mandir complex. So that's the fifth special quality. And we know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he's known as Bimal Prasad. So Bimal Prasad is another name for Mahaprasad, because after it's offered to Goddess Bimala Devi, then it's considered to be Mahaprasad. But there's still a sixth step, special step that they do in Jagannath Puri. They mentally they offer to the Asasatika Vaishnavas, 8 different pure devotees, by reciting their names: Vishvakshena, Sukadev Goswami, Prahlad Maharaj, Hanuman, Narad Muni, Garudi, Devala Rishi, Indradyumna Maharaj. They recite their names, and after all those things are offered, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Krishna Uchista Hoy Mahaprasada Nam Bhakta Esha Hoy Mahaprasada Kyayan. That prasad at that time, that becomes known as Mahaprasad, because it's been offered not just to the Lord, but to also to the devotees. So Guru Maharaj makes another point here also, which is coming from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. 2 other points, which are, it's like every sentence has a lot of purport to it. And I'd like to go through that a little bit, if you guys are interested. He says that even the great demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Shiva are greedy for it. If they can get this Mahaprasad, they become very happy. So in our magazine, we've also printed a story which appears in Lochandas Thakur's Chaitanya Mangal, which speaks about the glories of Mahaprasad and the origin of prasad distribution. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Gitavali, he it speaks about how Lord Shiva becomes ecstatic when he takes a mahaprasad of Krishna. Yogi yogi paya jaha bhogi ajaha vetatan adi bodhi kaho sabibai. Krishnera prasada antri jagat kore danya tripurari nachi jaha pai. So the verse speaks about Tripurari Nachi and how Tripurari, Lord Shiva, he begins to dance. And he says that speaking about this Mahaprasad, yogi, yogi, paya, jaha. That activity the yogis do, they're practicing yoga, the benefit they get by doing that, bhogi aja habitatan, they'll get today by eating. And it's particularly mentioning the yogis because the yogis, they're never eating, right? They're always fasting. But today the yogis are going to get their benefit by eating something. And how do we take that prasad? Is adi boli kao sabibhai. We take that mahaprasad and we chant the name of Hari at the same time when we chant Krishna's name. In another song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that Kunti Bhojan, thank you. The Kunti Bhojan, we take prasadam up to the neck. Now you may wonder, especially brahmacharis always wonder, why stop at the neck, right? Why not fill up all the way, right? But Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that we stop at the neck because you have to leave a little room for chanting. So he says here, Adi boli kao sabibhai. Ka means to eat. My dear brother, you eat, and while you're taking prasadam, you should chant the names of Krishna. Krishna prasada anatri jagati kori danya. These three worlds, everybody glorifies Mahaprasad. And when he gets it, Lord Shiva dances. So Guru Maharaj is indirectly indicating this. The famous story how once Narad Muni went to visit Lord Shiva and Parvati, and he told Parvati this story, which he told her that you've forgotten about. Uddhava, he says, he spoke to Krishna in the 11th canto, Tava bhukta ganda yasa lankara karchitaha uchista bojino dasastava mayam jaye mahi. That when we decorate ourselves with the ganda, the fragrant oils, the cloth, the lankara, the ornaments that you've already enjoyed, and when we eat uchista bojino, we take the remnants of your meals, dasastava mayam jaye mahi. Your servants, we're going to conquer over the illusory energy. So Narad Muni, he thought to himself, he says, a long time ago, I heard this verse that Uddhava had spoken these words to Krishna. And I became really, really ecstatic. So long I've been thinking about this, but I still, to now, I don't think I really understand the importance of honoring Krishna's prasadam. So I was thinking that although Krishna always says, I'm such a great devotee, glorifies Narad Muni, I thought actually I've been cheated. So I wanted to get the Mahaprasad of the Lord. So I made a plan to do that. So I went to Vaikuntha and I started serving Lakshmi Devi, just doing whatever service I could for her, washing her cloth, ironing her clothes, bringing her meals, doing different menial service. And Lakshmi Devi became very pleased, and she says, you ask any benediction you like, I'll give it to you. And then Narad Muni said, that was my chance. So I folded my hands and said, I've had this desire for a long, long time. Everybody says that I'm your servant, but still I've never gotten to taste Krishna's remnants, his uchista, because he just doesn't give it out to everybody. So my desire, you please give me just one handful of the Lord's prasadam. And Lakshmi Devi, when she heard that, she became very shy. And she said, well, I don't know what to do, because Krishna told me not to give his remnants to anyone. But still, I promised you, so I'm going to fulfill my promise. You just wait, and I'll get some mahaprasad, and I'll give it to you. So then Lakshmi Devi went to see Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu, he took her by the hand, and Lakshmi Devi, she was a little afraid. She said, please, I did something bad. I promised somebody something, and then he asked me to break my promise to you. So I have this promise to him, but I have a promise to you, and I don't know what to do. And the Lord, he's saying that she was very worried. He looked at Sudarshan Chakra, and Sudarshan Chakra, he said, I don't know why Lakshmi Devi is afraid. And Lakshmi said, no, it's not Sudarshan's fault. It's Narad Muni. Narad Muni, he served me for 12 years. And then I offered him this benediction. And then he asked me for mahaprasad. And so now he's put me in great danger because I promised you that you asked me to make a promise that I wouldn't distribute this. And then Lord Vishnu told her, they said, you listen, your words were a big mistake. But what can you do? So secretly, without me knowing it, you can give my remnants to him. And Lakshmi Devi, she became very, very happy. And so she managed somehow through some tricks, she stole some mahaprasad. And she called for Narad Muni, and she gave that mahaprasad. And Narad Muni, he's telling this story to Lord Shiva and Parvati. And he said that prasad was the most amazing. It was more effulgent than 10 million moons, 10 million suns, 10 million cupids. Just you touch it and you become effulgent. And it's really ecstatic. So I started playing my veena, and I came here to Mount Kailash. And when he went there, Lord Shiva greeted him. And Narad Muni said, today, I got something very special. And Lord Shiva said, what do you have that's so special? Why do you look so effulgent today? And so then he told him the whole story. And then Lord Shiva said, wait a minute, you're supposed to be my brother? Huh? You took all the mahaprasad and you didn't bring any for me? That's very, very bad. And then Narad Muni, he felt embarrassed and ashamed, and he bowed down his head. And when he bowed down his head, he noticed that there was a little bit of mahaprasad stuck on his fingernail, still there. So then he put his finger in front of Lord Shiva. The fingernail is considered a very contaminated thing, but Lord Shiva didn't hesitate. And at once he took that mahaprasad in his mouth. And from that, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his song, he says that Lord Shiva, Tripurari Nachi Jayapai, that Lord Shiva began to dance in ecstasy. And as Lord Shiva was dancing, when Lord Shiva dances, the whole universe becomes heavily affected, and the whole world was shaking and things. And the elephants who were holding up the weight of the earth, they were bending their heads out, and the universe started to crack. And Bhumi Devi, she ran out and she approached Goddess Katyayani, and she said, look, it's your husband, he's dancing like this, you got to stop him, the whole world's going to be destroyed. So Parvati went to Lord Shiva, and she spoke a little harshly. Sometimes wives, they do that with their husbands. Parvati spoke a little harshly to her husband, and it broke his ecstasy. And then Lord Shiva, he became unhappy. He said, well, what are you doing? There's a beautiful picture. Maybe I can find it. We're planning on printing this in our next magazine we're working on right now, which is about Lord Shiva. So I hadn't thought about this today, but I think I can find it pretty quick. Give me a minute here. Sorry about this. It should just take me a minute. Here it is right here. So, this up on the screen. This is Lord Shiva doing kirtan with all of his associates. You see Kartikeya playing on a flute. He looks like Krishna. and Ganesh beating on drums, and all the different ghouls and monsters and things, and Nandi there watching Lord Shiva doing his kirtan. We do our, here's Ganesh over here, when we do our Harinam on the street, you can imagine, people look at us and think we look strange. You can imagine if there was a Harinam like this. So Lord Shiva, he was dancing, and when Parvati spoke in a harsh way to him, it broke his ecstasy, and Lord Shiva became unhappy with her. And he said, "Look, what is this? I was in bliss, I was in samadhi, and now you've broken my samadhi." He said, "Why? I don't have any enemy in all the three worlds. You're acting like my enemy. Why'd you stop my bliss?" And Parvati, she said, "Please forgive me, but look, here's 𝙬𝙁 Devi. She's really disturbed. You put her in a lot of anxiety. You're putting everybody in the whole universe in a lot of anxiety. You're about ready to destroy the universe." And then Lord Shiva said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me." And then Parvati, she said, but one thing. She said, "Every day you dance in ecstasy in Krishna prema. But today, when you started dancing, it was different. And you became so ecstatic that you were pushing the earth planet down to Rasatala. And the day you look so much more effulgent, you seem so much more blissful. So what's the deal? What happened today?" And Lord Shiva, he said, "It's so exciting. You should hear. It's the most amazing thing. Narad Muni gave me some mahaprasad of Lord Narayan. It's so rare. It's such a wonderful thing. Even the Vedas don't know the glories of it. I'm so fortunate. I got this mahaprasad by Narad Muni's mercy." And Parvati, she's listening to her husband. She's looking at him. She said, "So? Where's mine?" She said, I thought you were a generous person. You're always telling me you love me and this and that. But you took all this mahaprasad and you didn't save anything for me?" And then Lord Shiva, he became really embarrassed. And he said, "Parvati, don't mind." He said, "But maybe this is where all the controversy comes from, even I don't know. But Lakshmidas Thakur says that Lord Shiva told her, look, you're a woman. You're not qualified to get the Mahaprasad." And Parvati is a bit of a heavy person. Okay, she's Durga Devi. And we see paintings of Parvati, of Durga, with her foot on top of Lord Shiva. She rules over her husband. When Parvati heard what she said, what her husband said, she said, "That's very, very bad. You can't speak like that. I'm known as Vaishnavi Devi." And in India, there's a famous temple we once visited called Vaishnavi Devi up in the Himalayan mountains, because she's famous. She serves Lord Vishnu in so many different ways. So then she said, standing here in front of all these saintly persons, I take a vow that if Vishnu is merciful to me, if I'm actually Vaishnavi Devi, if I'm actually a qualified devotee, then I'm going to give his Mahaprasad to everyone in the three worlds. And I vow that even the dogs, even the jackals, they'll get that Mahaprasad. And so when 𝙬𝙤 Devi, Goddess Parvati, she made that vow, Lord Narayan came running there. And Parvati, she bowed down and offered prayers to him. And Lord Narayan, with tears in her eyes, she was apologizing. And he said, no, don't be unhappy. What you wish will happen. And he said that by your Maya potency, your Durga Devi, you have a Durga, Durga has a Durga, Durga has a Durga, you have a prison house. Everyone becomes blind with Maya through your potency. And it's through you that I create the whole world and things. So you're so very, very special. And Lord Narayan told her at that time, Aichana pratigyatora ehina uchista mora avirodhe tibe sabakare mahaprasada gande sabe hare mukta bande guchaive nirbanda vichare. He said, in front of all of these saintly persons, I'm making this pratigya, I'm making this vow. Ehena uchista mora. From now on, my uchista, my remnants, I'm going to give it to you. So it started off in a bad way. Ladies won't like this story, that ladies are not qualified for the mahaprasad. But the conclusion is that she's the only one who can distribute the prasad. And he said, by the sweet fragrance of this prasad, all the saints and sages, they'll become free from their bondage. And they'll give up 𝙍𝙬𝙖𝙢 nirbandha vichari. They'll give up their stubbornness and debate and quarrel. So before this, it's known as prasad. But when I give it to you, it's going to become mahaprasad. Sunina takuravani punakahi katyayani mori jari doya ache chite. Abasha utista dibe, bunjibe sakala jibe, avirode pabe trijagate. And when Lord Narayan spoke like this, then Sunina Takuravani, Goddess Katyayani, hearing the instructions of Lord Shiva, she said that if you're really merciful to me, More Jari Doya Achititi, Jari means if you're really More Jari Doya, you're really merciful to me, then you should give me Avasya Utisa Dibi, you should give me all your remnants so that every living entity in the world will get that prasad. Everyone in all the three worlds will attain that prasad. So Goddess Katyayani is considered to be the supreme guru in that sense, because she's personally distributing. That's the business of the guru. Guru is that personality who gives mercy. And that mercy comes in the form of prasad. Prasad means mercy. And that's distributed by Goddess Katyayani or Bimala Devi. All of Jagannath's prasad is first given it to Goddess Bimala Devi. And then by her mercy, she gives it to all the different Vaishnavas who again distribute it to everyone else. So for this reason, Guru Maharaj was pointing out here, this little sentence, that no one else cooks food for Jagannath but Swayam Lakshmi Devi. And he says that even the great demigods headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are greedy for it. If they can get this Jagannath Prasad, they become very happy. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen again. If they can get this Mahaprasad, they become very happy. Even if a Chandala, a dog eater, touches that Mahaprasad, it cannot be polluted. It's so transcendental that even if it falls in the mouth of a dog, it's still not polluted. So there's another story I'll mention. So many stories about Jagannath Mahaprasad. When we were working on this magazine, there's a book is actually published. We have a book in Hindi and a book in Oriya, both two separate books just about Mahaprasad. I guess we didn't use we didn't give a big giant bibliography in this issue for them all, so I can't look up the name easily. Anyway, there's just two books just about Mahaprasad. So many stories about Jagannath Mahaprasad. There's one particular story that I want to touch on. It's a short story. That once there was one very proud fellow who came to Jagannath Puri, and someone offered him some Jagannath Mahaprasad. And they told him, this is the Uchista, the remnants of the Lord of the universe, Lord Jagannath. And when he was offered like that, he said, hey, I don't take anybody's remnants. I'm a very wealthy, powerful person. I don't take anybody's remnants. And because of that terrible offense that he made to Jagannath Mahaprasad, the local story is that his hands and legs fell off. It's kind of severe. So be careful not to make offenses to Mahaprasad. His hands and legs fell off, and he was kind of laying there on his stomach on the side of the road for a few days. And he was hungry. He was pretty miserable with no hands and no legs. And after a few days, a dog happened to come by, and the dog had just found a pot of old, half-rotten Mahaprasad. And the dog had been eating some of the rice from that. And as the dog came by that person, some of the rice fell out of the mouth of that dog on the ground. Now, this guy was very, very hungry, laying there in the road with no hands and no legs, the story they tell. And so kind of like a snake, I guess he kind of wormed his way forward, and he managed to eat those few grains of rice that had fallen from the mouth of the dog. And because he did that, that was kind of his prayaschitta, his atonement for his offense to Jagannath Mahaprasad. and his arms and legs came back. So Guru Maharaj comments here that this mahaprasad is so transcendental, even if it falls in the mouth of a dog, it's still not polluted. Therefore, anyone can touch it and take it thousands and thousands of miles to any part of the world, yet it never becomes polluted. You can accept it because it's transcendental. Such is Jagannath's prasad. And in the 𝙬𝙗 Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami gives a series of verses in his commentary glorifying Mahaprasad. And let's see. Yeah, we can put these on the screen and read this. Let's see. Ujjwala Prabhu, would you like to read that? 𝙬𝙗 Bhagavatamrita 2.1.162. Mahaprasada Samgyam.
Yes, Prabhu. Mahaprasada samgyam cha tatsprishtam yena kenachit yatra kutrapi vanitam avicharena bujyate. That food, did you say read the word for word or skip it, Prabhu? Okay. That food is called his Mahaprasad. Be it touched by anyone or brought anywhere, without discriminating the devotees, eat it. Commentary. The Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath is unique because it has been touched by his nectarian lips. It can never be contaminated, even if touched by an unseeable or untouchable person, or if carried to an unclean place. No decent person ever refuses to eat Lord Jagannath's Mahaprasad, or complains that it might not be pure, or that the time is improper to accept it. It is said, Yad anam pachayat lakshmir bhokta cha purushottama sprishtam namantavyam yata vishnus tataivatat. The food that Lakshmi cooks and Lord Purushottam eats should be accepted without consideration of its being touched or untouched by anyone. It is as pure as Lord Vishnu himself.
Now, at this point, without getting into a big explanation about it, because it's actually a big subject, Sanatana Goswami says here that no decent person ever refuses to eat Lord Jagannath's Mahaprasad or complains that it might not be pure or that the time is improper to accept it. So then what about Ekadasi? If someone comes and offers you Jagannath Mahaprasad and Ekadasi, we don't take that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted it. It's described in Jagadananda Pandit's Prema Vivarta. Bhaktivinoda Thakur cites that he accepted it, but he kept it aside and took it the next day. Now, in the Jagannath Mandir, I'm told, I haven't been inside, that there's a deity of the Papa Purush, sin personified, who's tied up with a rope. He has no ability in the Jagannath Mandir. So why is it that we don't take that Mahaprasad on Ekadasi day? That's our question. Now you may say because the Papa Purush is in there. But if you say that, that's an offense to Mahaprasad. Because Mahaprasad can never become contaminated. It's always pure. And in fact, there's a lot of people in Jagannath Puri who every Ekadasi, the only thing they take is Jagannath Mahaprasad. That's part of their brata. But Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't do like that. So why is it that what's the problem then? Why can't we just take some grain prasadam? Life would be a lot easier and simpler. It wouldn't be so complicated when we have to cook. On Ekadasi, why don't we just take grain prasadam and offer that? So why is it that we fast on Ekadasi? You remember Krishna Kun? We spoke about this before. Fakramambu spoke about it. Do you remember the answer? You have to speak real loud so we can hear you. Because Mahaprabhu asked his mother, Sachimata, he said, you don't, on this day, you don't take grains. And because he asked her for that, then we respect that. That's from our tradition. It's not exactly in Shastra, but we have three principles, as we'll be speaking about on Wednesday for our next session in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, where Narottam Das Thakur, he says that sadhu, shastra, guru, vakya, chitteti, koriya, aikya, that these three things that we accept the words of the sadhu, shastra, and guru. So sometimes devotees, they become a little confused and they kind of mix up what is the difference between the word of sadhu and the word of guru. And they'll say, well, this ISKCON guru said something. He's not my guru, he's a sadhu, but he's guru, like that, or he's a sadhu. Why then, what is the necessity of Narottam Das Thakur saying these three things? And Fakir Mahaprabhu gave a nice explanation of that to us. He said that they're the same. Sadhu is guru is sadhu, sadhu is guru. So what's the difference between the two? Guru means my personal guru who's guiding me. The sadhu means the sadhu tradition. And he gave an interesting example in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the section of the Hari Bhakti Vilas, maybe it's the 11th Vilas, I think, which speaks about the glories of Tulsi Devi. There's a verse which mentions how you should make a sabji out of Tulsi manjaris, and you should offer that to the Lord. Ujjwala, you're a learned person, and you've done some pujari work. Have you ever seen anyone do that? Heard about it? Have you?
No.
I've never seen, I've been all over the world. I've trained a lot of pujaris and taken courses. I've never seen anybody do like that. So why don't we do that? It says in Hari Bhakti Vilas is Shastra. It's Smriti, it's remembrance of it, but it's quoting Shruti. There's so many verses from different Shastra in it. Why don't we do it? Because the sadhu tradition. The tradition of the sadhu there means a tradition, and in our tradition, we don't do that. So that's also a consideration. In our tradition with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and online, although Jagannath Mahaprasad is never impure, and if someone thinks it's impure, that's offensive, we don't take even Jagannath Mahaprasad on Ekadasi out of ecstatic love, thinking of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to Sachi Mata. So, Ujjwala, do you want to keep reading from Skanda Purana?
Yes, Prabhu. Chirastam apisam shukshmam nitam vaduradeshata yata yato pabhuktam sat sarva papa panodanam. Even if Lord Jagannath's prasad has completely dried up from sitting for a long time or has been carried to a far distant place, if eaten in the proper spirit, it will surely drive away all of one's sins.
Even if you carry it all the way to Ypsilanti, Michigan, from Jagannathpur all the way to Hungary, and it's really dried up, maybe you see a little bit of mold on it. Something you think, oh, I don't know about that. But no, that Mahaprasad, if you take it in the proper spirit, it'll purify you. And sarva papa anodanam. It'll purify you all of your sin. Go ahead.
According to the Bhavishya Purana, Antyavarnar hina varnai sankara prabhavarati sprishtam jagat pateranam bhuktam sarva ghanashanam. Even if the food eaten by the Lord of the universe has been touched by outcasts, by those with no caste, or by those born in mixed castes, still it has the power to destroy all sins. In the words of the Tattva Yamala, Nasti tatraiva rajendra sprishta vivechanam yasya samsprishta matrena yantyamedhya pavitratam. O best of kings, one should never be concerned whether someone has touched Lord Jagannath's prasad. If persons unfit to take part in Vedic sacrifices simply touch this prasad, they become completely sanctified.
So we don't have this conception very much because we grew up in a McDonald's culture in the West, and you've got people who are, I'm sorry to be disgusting and gross, but they're picking their nose and they're cooking and even I've heard some very disgusting things that in plants where they make orange juice. In the United States, they have a certain allowable amount of human urine, which is allowed in the orange juice, the bottled orange juice, which is one reason why we don't like to offer those things to our Thakurji. It's really disgusting. And peanut butter, there's a certain allowable amount of mouth stool, because the mice, they go and eat the peanuts, and it's just practically impossible to keep them out of it. And maybe it's a really small amount, and probably it's not going to hurt you. But in Vedic culture, you can't offer that. There's no question. We can't understand that. Vedic culture is such a pure culture that if some untouchable person just touches some food, then you can't offer that. But Jagannath Prasad is not like that, even if it comes from the mouth of a dog. Go ahead, Prabhuji.
No kala niyamo vipra vrate chandrayane yata prapta matrena bunjita yadichen mokshamatmana. O Brahmana, there are no restrictions about when to accept this prasad, as there are in the observance of vows like Chandrayana. Whenever one receives Lord Jagannath's prasad, one should eat it at once if one wants to attain liberation of the soul.
So this is a verse from the Garuda Purana. In the Chandrayana Vrata, part of the ceremony is you take prasad, but you don't do that until after you've done all the different rituals and things. And you don't take the prasad yourself until after you've given it to the Brahmins and that. And this is noted in the pastime in the Bhagavatam with the Yagya Brahmins. When the boys went there, the Yagya Brahmins, they said, we know all the rituals and things, and when we don't mind giving you prasad, because prasad should be given to everyone, but before we give it to you, we should take it, because we're the Brahmins, that's just proper etiquette. So in Chandrayana Brata, there's restrictions like that. But with Jagannath Mahaprasad, there's no restrictions. And whenever it comes, you should just immediately take it. You're not supposed to refuse it. That can be a little problematic when you have some crazy Hare Krishna brahmachari or someone serving it out, and you've already eaten like 3 plates of prasadam, and you feel like you're going to die, and they come with this evil smile on their face, and they dump a big heaping spoon of prasadam right over your hands. You're trying to, no, Prabhu, and they just dump it right there, and they're laughing in an evil way. So in Jagannath Puri, when they're serving out prasadam, the tradition is you're not supposed to refuse it. Because if you refuse it, how can you refuse Jagannath Mahaprasad? It's an offense. So what traditionally, and I found, this is what I heard from Fakir Mohammed, who comes from very old school, I don't see them doing it so much anymore. Some of the really older sadhus, they still know this thing, but they'll say purna. They won't say nyet or nem. They won't say no, but they'll say purna. I'm complete. I'm full. I'm good. They won't actually refuse prasadam because it's considered to be a great offense to refuse Mahaprasad. You can't do that. So many different stories and discussions are there on Mahaprasad. I think I'm going to stop there, though. What time we started? Yeah, I should stop here. I'd like to stop there and just see if anybody has any reflections or comments or anything. There's a lot of reading. I personally, I'm not always inspired by reading. I remember once one of my god sisters, when I was with Guru Maharaj as a servant in UK, she gave me a bunch of cassette tapes. And she said that because at that time they were expensive and it was difficult to get good quality ones in India. And she said, so you take these back to Bhubaneswar and Guru Maharaj for some special class. You record with this. So I think it was Nityananda Trayodasi or some festival or something. So I thought this is the day. This is a special. So I put that in, and then the whole class Guru Maharaj just read. And practically didn't make any comments. In fact, a lot of the class, most of the class, I was reading. He was reading the Sanskrit, and I was reading out the English. So she kind of chastised me later on. So I feel a little funny sometimes just having a lot of reading. But I also find that if we read and there's discussion and reflection as we go along, it's very, very purifying. And it's also something I like to do because we should stress Shastra, and I can read out these verses in my broken pronunciation, but when we see them on the screen and we read them out, then it adds more to us, and we realize something more about the importance of Shastra. So I'd like to go ahead and stop there and ask the devotees if they'd like to make any comments. And Viren Prabhu, I see your name, but we don't get to see your beautiful face. Do you have any reflections, anything you want to share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you, is the video showing?
Yeah, now we can see you. Hi, Bo. Nice to see you.
Very well. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you for taking part today.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Thank you for taking part today. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Sure, Prabhu. There was quite a class. It was actually very, there was a lot. I think for me, there was the one thing that stood out, and it's something I guess I never really dwelled on a lot. But I liked how you mentioned like the differences between the three dhams. So, Mayapur being the place of kirtan, Vrindavan being the place of dust, and then Jagannath Puri being the place of prasad. And I quite appreciated the whole, the 6 aspects of the prasad that you've mentioned. It's something that I never knew. And it's something, Prabhu, where can we read more on that? And also, just in terms of the pastime that you mentioned about Lord Shiva tasting that mahaprasad, the remnants from Narad Muni's finger. Someone narrated this to me, I think back in 2010. But I've never really read up on that. And also just, if I could read up a bit more on that pastime. But I think overall for me, the part that really stood out is Lakshmi Devi's mercy, where when she said that she makes this vow, this promise that she will ensure that everyone, whoever in all the 3 worlds this Mahaprasad will be distributed to. And that is very, very sweet. And I think just also, I'm very guilty of this. So, I have Lord Jagannath's Maha rice, the dried rice that, and when it comes every Ekadasi, I break my fast with it. But I think for the first time after hearing this class, there's going to be a lot more appreciation for that Mahaprasad when I take that, when I break my Ekadasi fast. So yeah, that's about it, Prabhu.
Yeah, let me just, first of all, I'm not trying to just sell our product, but I'll just be really honest. I collect a lot of books. I do know of a couple of books that have a lot of stuff about Mahaprasad. If you read Hindi and Sanskrit, or if you read Oriya, that are really excellent books just about Mahaprasad, and they give so much information. In English, honestly, I'm just being straight. The best publication I've ever seen for Mahaprasad is this. And that's our magazine that we made on Mahaprasad. And you can contact Chaitanya Prabhu. He may still have some copies. Do you think, Krishna Kaur? He might have some copies.
No, I think he might not, because when we were going to pandemics, we were going to send a box. Oh, didn't we send a box ahead? So we don't have copies left.
I thought Chaitanya Prabhu has some. So if you're really nice to him, don't make him angry or anything, then maybe he'll let you have a magazine for some special price or something. You're mentioning a story also, which we printed in here about Lakshmi Devi. We printed a lot of other very important stories about Jagannath Mahaprasad. First of all, each one of these dhams, this is a special quality. The Braj Duli, the dust of Vrindavan, that quality pervades the whole dham. Everybody's always thinking of the dust. And the gopis are wanting to take the dust of Krishna's feet. Krishna's wanting to take the dust of the gopis' feet. That's a very, very important quality. Kirtan pervades Mayapur. That's the main thing. And Mahaprasad pervades Jagannath Puri. It's the place of Mahaprasad. And there's no place in all the 3 worlds where they honor Mahaprasad in the same way that they do in Puri. And traditionally, people, before they take Mahaprasad, they'll take bath, they'll put on clean cloth. They consider it to be an offense to mix any other food or even any other prasadam with Jagannath Mahaprasad. It should just be taken by itself. They'll sit on the ground, and because when you take Jagannath Mahaprasad, everyone is considered to be equal. If Indra walks into the room, into the prasadam hall, and he comes to take prasadam, he'll sit on the floor. And a new bhakta will sit right next to him, because in the eyes of Jagannath, in the eyes of the Lord, everyone is equal. So that's one of the symptoms. Everybody sits on the floor. When they take Jagannath Mahaprasad, after taking prasad, they'll wash their mouth, which we all do, But in Puri, they'll put water in their mouth and they rinse their mouth and then they swallow it. But they don't, because you don't want to spit out any mahaprasad. And then the next time they'll spit. So if they go on a train or something with mahaprasad, they'll never put it under the seat. They always put it over their head. So they're very, very particular about mahaprasad. And we, as visitors there, sometimes devotees become a little confused. We have so many yatras coming, and some of them say, "What's the problem? Let's sit in chairs. We're Western devotees. We'll sit on a mat. We have guests coming here, and they don't relate to this business of sitting on the floor. They don't relate to, we'll give them spoons and forks, because in Puri they use their hands, because prasad is so sacred you want to touch it." I don't mind that personally. If somebody needs to, I'm a bit of a chairman. I have a hard time sitting on the floor. But when you go to some other country, if you understand the culture and the traditions in that country, and you're able to observe those things, it brings great happiness and delight to the hearts of the local people. You're being so respectful of them that you're observing their culture. And so I found the same thing. And of course, in Puri, there are some people even who become offended if you sit on a cloth or something. Sachinandan Maharaj told us, it's a story we printed in the magazine also, that he was once invited by the king of Puri to come and take prasadam in his ashram. And so Maharaj went there, and they invited him to sit next to the king of Puri, and everybody's sitting on the floor. Sachinandan Maharaj had a wool chadar. It was a little cold winter. He took the chadar off, he put it on the floor, and he sat down on the chadar. And then they brought out leaf plates, and they served out prasadam. They recited some prayers, and everyone was just sitting there, and nobody was taking. Sachinandan Maharaj is very sensitive, and he understands one important Vaishnava principle: don't be the first person to take prasad. If you visit a Gaudiya Mutt temple or some temple of Goswamis or something, just watch what everybody else does, and don't start taking until everybody else begins. And don't be the first one to finish. That's another principle. So anyway, he was waiting, nobody was taking. And he was waiting, and he was waiting and waiting. Finally, he leaned over to the king of Puri and he said, "Maharaj, is everything okay? When are we going to?" And Maharaj said, "We're just waiting for you to get off your asan," because he was sitting on that wool chadar. Because it's wrong in their opinion. They weren't angry. The king of Puri is a cultured person. He's not angry, but the culture is everybody's equal when we come before Lord Jagannath. I find it a very beautiful culture. And I'm very strict about that. When I take Jagannath Mahaprasad, I always sit on the floor. Unless we're sitting with some senior Vaishnava sannyasis or someone there in a chair or something, and they want me to sit with them, I always sit on the floor. The other thing in your comments that I was appreciating, you're talking about Lakshmi Devi's mercy. And I was reflecting on that because right now there's a big controversy amongst a lot of the devotees. And it's a controversy I find a little useless, because it's a cultural controversy. And cultural controversies are useless because culture is different in different places. This is my personal perspective on it. It's a little controversial, so my perspective on the controversy is also relative. But some people say that women are not the same as men. They can't have the same roles in society and things. If you study in Vedic culture, it's confusing because there are statements of ladies giving initiation. There are statements of ladies giving mantra. In the Bhagavatam, Rukmini was initiated by a lady. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And there's different examples given like that throughout Vedic literatures. But there's also cultures and tradition of people discouraging that kind of thing. So it goes back a long, long time. And which one is right? There's my humble perspective is that it's different in different places. Different places will observe it in different ways. But I find it interesting in this particular story from Lochandas Thakur's Chaitanya Mangal that he kind of touches on the tension there. That 𝙬𝙬 Devi, Parvati, she's refused. Said, you can't get prasadam, you're just a woman. You can't understand the glories of prasadam. And it's wrong. Because every man that I've ever met has a mother. And he respects a mother. And just if we say that only men can practice spiritual life or only men can be advanced, then it's not spiritual. It's something mundane. So in this story, but there is some traditional tension. Why is that there? Some people say that well, there's some injunctions about ladies. Actually, you won't find anything in Sanatana Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the first Vilas, where he speaks about the qualification of guru. He doesn't say anything about gender. The Bhagavatam doesn't say anything about gender. But there is descriptions by Sanatana Goswami. He says that your guru should have good teeth. And he should come from a higher family than you. He should be very beautiful. He should be like this and that. And then at the end, Sanatana Goswami says, but actually those things are not really important. What's really important is that he's a pure devotee. So why then are those injunctions given? That it's really important that your guru has good teeth. Or who cares about that? It is important. Why, there's a subtle point there, which I feel is important. The subtle point is that for some people, it's important. For some people, what caste the guru comes, because there's also a lot of injunctions, there's probably more injunctions against non-Brahmins becoming guru than women becoming guru. So why is that there? Because there's some people who just don't relate to someone who's not a Brahmin being a guru, or someone who doesn't have good teeth, because they have this particular cultural consideration. So I found it really interesting in this story that Parvati's being, told that you're just a woman, so you can't do this thing. But then as Parvati Devi, it turns out this very important story, this very foundational story of Mahaprasad. Prior to this, Mahaprasad wasn't being distributed at all. And as Parvati Devi becomes Bimala Devi, who's in charge of distributing all that prasadam, which again is a business of guru. And I'm not trying to champion one thing or another. I find it's a controversial subject, and there's reasons why devotees have concerns for different sides, and I see good reasons on both sides of things, but it's an individual concern to me personally, and I also feel like from my personal perspective, I'm concerned that we not try to make a rule banning or saying guru can only be a certain gender, a certain nationality, a certain bodily thing. I fear what that's going to do to our sampradaya. I've gotten really off track. I'm sorry. Well, I was just thinking of some of these things recently. Generally, I don't have much discussion even about these subjects because I find that most people already have their mind made up, because that's the nature of cultural things. They already have their mind made up. My daughter, if you talk to some Brahmins in Orissa, you ask them, you're a Brahmin boy, you're a 𝙎𝙬𝙗𝙬 boy from South Africa or from America, and you say, I'd like to marry your daughter. Forget it. No way. My daughter will never marry anybody but from a Pukka high class Brahmin family. And they can't even consider anything else. That's a cultural kind of conditioning that's there. And so in these kind of discussions, sometimes they're not really discussions, because different sides already have their cultural conception, and that's just the way it is. And I personally appreciate the GBC, how they approached it recently. They said that it should be up to different places, because they understood, and Prabhupada said that unity and diversity is going to be different people, different conceptions. And that's controversial. I don't like to talk about this in public. I'm going to stop with it right there. Anyway, thank you very much, Prabhu. I appreciate it. Prabhu. Is that okay? Do you want to share anything more?
No, that's it, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking part. I like to encourage everybody. I'm happy to be here every week, and I'll work hard and collect things like I did today from different shastras and places, and we can have some discussion. But it's nice. Our purpose is to have a community, and I don't mind there's just a few of us here today. That's fine, because I love you guys. You really captured my heart. But we should try to be here every week. I'll do my best to be here every week for you guys, and let's all try together. Mukunda Prabhu, any thoughts from you?
I was just appreciating Viren Prabhu's statement, and having a much more deeper and profound respect for Jagannath Mahaprasadam. And it's something that I will also do now from now onwards, because after reading and hearing about, the potency of Lord Jagannath, mahaprasadam, where it comes from, how it comes, doesn't matter. It remains pure. Even if it falls from a dog's mouth, it still keeps its potency. So I was just also reflecting on two wonderful personalities that have actually demonstrated this. And those two personalities were Raghunath Das Goswami and Lord Chaitanya, where Raghunath Das Goswami used to go to the back of the temple and take that mahaprasad, which even cows wouldn't take, And then Lord Chaitanya saw him and also came and took from his hand the prasadam. So that was the Lord himself demonstrating the potency of this mahaprasadam. So just focusing on that.
There, by the way, that's on the northern side, the northern wall of the Jagannath Mandir. There's a wall, and the other side of the wall is the Ananda Bazaar, where they sell mahaprasad. And they take the old prasad and they throw it over the wall. And you'll see many, many cows there to this day. Raghunath Das Goswami was taking what the cows wouldn't take. Oftentimes we take devotees there on parikrama, and I tell everybody that I was thinking that today we could have a special experience for lunch. and the devotees laugh. But it's actually not really a funny thing, because the Shastra describes that according to someone's conception, that if they have a high conception, then they can understand this prasadam cannot be contaminated. But if they don't have that conception, then they have to follow something else. And I would suggest this may also be the same discussion we're having about guru, that some people, they just can't see past a woman's body or something. And so for them, maybe they can't do that. Maybe even whole cultures may have some problem with that. I like to think, though, that that everybody on the side of this issue, to go back to that subject, which I've been thinking a lot about lately, that I like to think that everybody on either side of this subject, that if someone is actually really fully qualified, whatever qualification you want to say, the incarnation of Janava Mata, Lord Nityananda's wife, and she comes and we can certify she has a certification. She actually is Janava Mata, and she can show four hands at certain points and things like Janava Mata did. Then I like to think that we would be able to accept her as guru. And I think everybody would be able to do that. That's my concern. We just don't make rules in a certain way, kind of preclude gender nationality or something. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's fine, Prabhuji. Thank you. That's all I wanted to just share today.
Anything else, Mukunda?
No, I'm fine today. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's nice. Do you know, also when we talk about this prasadam, and I see you, and I remember last time we were in South Africa, and prasadam is such a very important thing. We're talking about it today. And we have this online talks, and we can try to be real sweet and remember each other and things. And it's nice, and there's some connection there through sound, through thought, through the heart. But it's not the same, because we want to take prasadam together. It's fully satisfying.
Yeah, it seems a little impersonal like this.
Yeah,
there's no transfer of energy between two devotees. It's so impersonal, But I guess it's the best we can do for now.
Goswami says, "Bhumte bojayate chaiva sadvidim pratilakshanam." It's one of the 6 aspects of loving relationships, to exchange prasadam. It's such an important thing. Prabhupada always did that. We always try to have prasadam at the end of the program. Now I can, hold out to everybody. I can show a picture to everybody, some mahaprasad in our magazine, but it's not the same. Because we want mahaprasad is so wonderful, because all of our senses experience. And we also wrote something about this in here, why it is that Mahaprabhu, particularly, what was his experience of mahaprasad. And from the writings of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Govinda Lilamrita to different places, we find that Mahaprabhu was in the mood of the gopis when they would get the uchisa, the remnants of Krishna. And they would experience, they would taste Krishna's saliva on. which reminds me of a short story we tell sometimes. The first temple I ever went to was New Orleans. It was like 1981. It was there for the Rath Yatra Festival. And I went to the, I was starting to go to the temple. I was a vegetarian. I liked philosophy. I liked discussion, literature, music. And I would stay for the kirtan. I would stay afterwards, and I would debate with the devotees because in high school I was on the captain of my debate team. I loved to debate, and they would always defeat me. And every day, every time, they would bring me some mahaprasad. I didn't know that it was mahaprasad. And one day they brought this prasad to me, and it was a new devotee, new bhakta, who brought it, and he had kind of this, sorry to be cruel, but he had kind of a stupid smile on his face. And he brought this milk carton of sweets, and he said, "Prabhu, this has Krishna's saliva on it." And I didn't know anything about anything, and I thought, oh my God, they've got some guy behind the curtain there who's drooling on the food. And I literally, I took every piece out and I was looking at it to make sure there was no saliva on it. It's not really a very cool thing to tell Brahmin people. Like in the story we were telling of that person who went to Jagannath Puri and lost his arms and legs. We're also like that. We can't appreciate the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the middle gopis. They're facing Krishna's. Thank you, Mukunda.
Hare Krishna.
Madhavananda, you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. I was surprised. I was feeling pretty emotional hearing about Mahaprasadam and Jagannath Puri, and it was just making me miss being there. And I'm just really grateful to you for sharing everything you have with me about Jagannath Mahaprasadam. As a devotee who, has lived in a temple for some time and has been around for a little bit, you can get used to taking prasadam all the time, but it's very clear when you're in Jagannath Puri that this is something so special. And I think especially for devotees who can't go into the temple, there's some kind of sweetness there, that some kind of union and separation when you receive Jagannath Mahaprasadam. It's very sweet. So yeah, I was just feeling grateful, and I just can't wait to go back to Puri, basically.
We also can't wait to go back to Puri.
Yeah.
We can't wait to see you guys there either in Puri. That's a really deep comment that you just made, about that when we take Jagannath Mahaprasad, it's union and separation. There's another story you've heard me tell probably before. Whenever we speak about prasadam in Puri, this is one of the stories we tell. How the British, when they were in Puri, when they were in India, they decided one day that they wanted to go and see Lord Jagannath. They wanted to go inside the temple. And so they went to the temple and they said, we're sorry, but Bideshi Prabeshni Shade, there's no Westerners allowed inside. And the British became a little annoyed. And they said, we're the British Army. Get out of our way. So they brought a whole platoon or something with soldiers with guns and weapons. And these poor Hare Krishna Pandits, it was before the days when they were weightlifting and stuff, they didn't know what to do with all these British Army. And they said that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came hundreds and hundreds of these Hanuman monkeys. And they started attacking the British soldiers. And those British soldiers had been trained to how to fight with the Danish soldiers, with the French, with the Americans, but they'd never been trained how to fight with monkeys. And the monkeys were biting him and scratching him, and the British soldiers finally just freaked out, and they just ran. And then the Pandits came out of the temple, and respecting the desire for union, there's a desire for union, the desire to see the Lord, although it wasn't such a pure desire, but respecting their desire, they came out of the temple and they said, would you like to see Jagannath? And the British said, yes. And they said, okay, sit down. And they sat them down on the road and they brought plates and they gave everyone Jagannath Mahaprasad. And Sanatana Goswami notes in one place that taking Jagannath Mahaprasad is the same as having darshan of the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, going back to what I was just mentioning to, I think it was Mukunda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was taking Jagannath Mahaprasad, he was doing it in the mood of separation, in the mood of the gopis. And as you're mentioning, it's exactly the thing. He's taking prasadam, feeling separation, but then having union. It's the same as having darshan of Lord Jagannath. So I miss it. I miss sitting in our ashram in a sweet way with just a few devotees and you being there and taking prasadam together. I hope that day will come again. It's such a nice thing after every festival. I know you guys do it there. We just had Nityananda. We had 3 Nityananda Trayodasies here in Hungary.
Wow.
These guys are real Nityananda Bhaktas. One in Debrecen, one in Budapest, and one in Eger, 3 different cities. And somehow I gave talks in all 3 places. Govinda Hari Prabhu also spoke here in Debrecen. And we had prasadam each place, and it was wonderful, to sit with the devotees, and especially if you call out Nityananda in the middle of the prasadam, and devotees become very happy. Ujjwala Prabhu, what do you think of all this stuff today? Does it make sense? Any reflections?
Yeah, it makes great sense, Prabhu. I'm longing to return to Puri. I'm just remembering my own experience there mostly, and very happy to hear about Mahaprasad. And yeah, thank you for doing these talks. And yeah,
it's said that in different ages we have different processes. In the age of Kali, it's the holy name, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam. But Lord Jagannath, is said that he was thinking that even chanting the holy name is difficult, and I see that with myself. I'm chanting japa. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up or something. It can be difficult to even chant japa. So Lord Jagannath thought we should have prasadam, because I've never seen anybody fall asleep when they're taking prasadam. Have you ever seen anyone Govinda Hari Prabhu?
I heard that in the Scottish devotee, some of them, they went out the whole day. They were really tired, and they started on a prasadam.
They would fall asleep.
Yeah, fall asleep. And after, when we wake up,
prasadam's all in their face.
But it's very unique.
Do you want to add any other comments, Govinda Hari Prabhu? Govinda Hari Prabhu is here also. Govinda Hari Prabhu, he's our guest here at our program tonight, so everybody should be nice to him and don't make any brahmachari jokes like me. I make all these terrible brahmachari jokes. Actually, he's a good brahmachari. He's been for many, many years. Shiva Ramaraj told him that he wants him to take sannyas, and he's always traveling and preaching. And I always appreciate Govinda Hari Prabhu's classes because he quotes Shastra like anything, and very, very thoughtful. And he loves the devotees, and he's not like one of those fanatical brahmacharis who hate women or something like that. So this is Govinda Hari Prabhu right here.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you, all of you. Hare Krishna.
Any reflections? Anything you want to add, Prabhuji?
Yes. Hare Krishna. Maybe I'm not a qualified speak to you. You are more elevated than me. I'm sorry. I apologize. But it was very nice lecture, and just I want to share to you the all Hungarian devotees. They are really eager to listening from Madhavananda Prabhu. So we are so happy he's with us. So we have opportunity to spend some time with him, and we are so lucky. So this is what I want to share. And also it comes to my mind, like when Lord Shiva took Mahaprasad, and he was so ecstatic, and he showed for us like we practice in spiritual life and how we can be eager to accepting the Lord mercy. So when he took the Mahaprasad, and he was so ecstatic dancing, and he's even, hogy mondják, az elfelejtett mindent? Forget about in the...
He's destroying the universe.
Yeah. So it's a very good example for me, like how we have to appreciate the prasad, Mahaprasad, what is coming from the Lord. And it's very special, and we don't have to thinking it's very... my English not so good, I hope so you understand me, but Krishna Kunmata with me, she's born in Hungary, so she can help me. hogy van az, hogy ne vegyük anyaginak ezt a dolgot. We
shouldn't take prasadam as material.
Yeah. And so it's a good example for us. So we have to have this consciousness. So when it's a mahaprasad, it's coming for us. We have to have because Lord Shiva is thinking, like, oh, it's very unique. It's first time it's happening with me in my life. And we are not, or I'm saying myself, behalf of myself, I'm not in that consciousness, but it's very good to listening Madhavananda Prabhu's story, and she's sharing the story. Oh, I have to remember that when I honoring prasadam, so it's so unique and so special, and I have a special mercy, but I will get it from that form from the Lord. So and also I appreciate it to see you. Have you been in Hungary, devotees?
Anybody there been to Hungary?
Please come if you like. I invite you to come. We have a beautiful 𝙎𝙬𝙖𝙢𝙠. We have a beautiful farm. It's the name of it, 𝙬𝙬𝙗𝙬𝙠. So beautiful. 𝙬𝙬𝙤𝙬𝙬 𝙬𝙬𝙗𝙬𝙠. So if you have a chance, please come, and you don't miss the opportunity to see personally 𝙬𝙬𝙗𝙬𝙠, take a darshan from them. So you are very welcome, all of you.
If you can come to Hungary, especially their festival for Radhastami and Janmashtami, their Radhastami festival is very famous. Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to come every year, and Indradumna Maharaj, and many senior devotees, and devotees from all over Europe, actually, they come to New Brajadam for that festival. I have to correct a couple of small misconceptions that he was making. He was saying that the Hungarian devotees are very eager to hear from us. It's not exactly like that. The real fact of the matter is we've been trying to contemplate this, and I understood the real fact of the matter. The devotees in Hungary, they're so kind, and they have such good hearts that they become so happy when they see a dog or someone gets some prasadam. And so when we come, they feed us, and they become happy with it, and just, they all like to feed us. They're just so merciful. That's the real situation.
Yeah, because they understand that we are from Puri. So residents of Vrindavan always meditate on the dhuli. Residents of Mayapur always do kirtan. And the residents of Jagannath Puri, they always meditate on prasadam. So they always understand that quality.
Yeah, we're always just thinking, Anamoya, feed me. Where's the prasadam? And Krishna Bodhadoyamoy, he's so very kind. He gives us Swaprasad in a Dilobai. He gives us that prasadam. Radha Krishna Gunagal. While we're taking that prasadam, we should be calling out the names of Radha and Krishna. I was also appreciating his comment that we should be conscious when we take prasadam. And if you go, Tota Gopinath is a real easy place to go. Or I also find sometimes in Vrindavan, Radharaman temple can also be fairly easy. There's a place to go to get prasadam and experience a different culture than our ISKCON culture, in a way that maybe nobody's going to canvass you or anything. You might not feel uncomfortable. But I'll come to you, Vivian. In Tota Gopinath temple, they'll invite you for prasadam at lunchtime. There's so many different Vaishnavas that go there. But usually before they take prasadam, they say, hey, sadhu sabadan. They announce it, sadhu sabadan. Sadhus, be careful. And that's a common thing I've seen in many different places before they take prasadam. And then they'll recite some prayers. In the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON, we recite Sarira Vijayajal. In other places, they may say Mahaprasadi Govinde, or in Puri, they say Nilachela Nivasa, Nichaya Paramatmani, they recite some prayers for Jagannath. But in most places, they'll say Sadhu Sabadan. Sadhus, be careful. In other words, don't think that you're just going to have a good time now. I'm just here to eat. And I saw once Krishna Das Maharaj and Mahanta Tota Gopinath. We brought a group of Western devotees there. And they were going out, they like have prayers for like 20 minutes.
No exaggeration.
No exaggeration, for like 20 minutes. And everybody's got prasadam on the plate, and he's, Ki-jai this and Ki-jai that and Ki-jai and Ki-jai and this. And so one of the Matajis just started taking prasadam. And he became furious. And he went over and started shouting at her, poor Mataji. And he said, don't think this is a restaurant. He said, this is Tota Gopinath's prasad. So it's he's a little harsh maybe for our taste, but he's correct. He's a sadhu. And this is not a restaurant. We're just coming to please our taste buds. But this is Krishna prasad. And so it's best to take it together. And we call out sadhu sabadam, dear devotees, be careful. That was appreciated. Just comment. Krishna Kun, do you want to add anything?
I might.
I'll bet you anything. Vana Biharni, you correct me. I'll bet you Vana Biharni will be very happy if she can see your face. Am I correct, Vana? You have to come here. Vana Biharni is going to cry otherwise. She's going to be depressed. She's going to think you don't like her or something.
Hi, Bhavani. You need to tell me about next week. I was appreciating this point that if eaten in the proper consciousness, then it purifies. I'm not saying that it doesn't purify if it's not eaten in the proper consciousness, because there are examples for that as well. But I was particularly marking that point that even if Jagannath mahaprasadam is carried, even if it's dried up and if it's respected in the proper consciousness and it's dried up, then it's purifying. I also like this point about.
Please speak louder. Yes, you do.
I read them. It's just.
Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No problem. Hare Krishna.
All right, that was Krishna Kun. And Viren Prabhu, you had your hand up. You had something you want to share?
Yeah, sorry, Prabhu. It's just a question that's lurking in the back of my mind, and I hope I'm not being a bit respectful by asking the question. So the one thought that's going in my mind is Lord Shiva tasted just a grain of this mahaprasad, and he experienced such ecstasy. How is it that when we go to the temple and we have the mahaprasad of the Lord, we don't even, I don't feel any of that. There's some of the prasad, yes. When I eat mahaprasad, it's really, really nice. But I'm just trying to wonder in my mind, is it like the consciousness? Is it purification? What is it? What is it?
It's a big subject. I was speaking with our Fakir Mohan Prabhu about this subject once, and he made some comments about the compiler of the Gaudiya Vedanta, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Abhidhan, Haridas Das, and how he would do madhukari every day. And he would not ask for anything. He had no money. He would just go and do kirtan. And whatever they would give him, that's what he would take and cook with. And Fakir Mohan sometimes got that prasadam. And he said that was the most amazing prasadam. That prasadam which was obtained by chanting Hare Krishna, because it added some consciousness to it. Whereas if some wealthy person comes to our temple and maybe he's in a pornography business and he feels bad that he's doing this nasty kind of business, so he wants to give some money to the temple for prasadam. And there's some stories we printed about that in regards to Govindaji Prasad, how once one prostitute donated money for boga to the temple, and Govindaji personally instructed that. It's a story here that only Govindaji can digest everything. And anyway, there's some different stories like that. We see also with Raghunath Das Goswami how he was accepting the money from his father initially, but then after some time he refused that because he felt that money was contaminated by the consciousness of his father. So the first thing is, where do you get it from? How have you obtained that thing? And we know that if you buy some vegetables in certain places that have lots of chemicals that were just grown in like a factory kind of thing, even their vegetables, it's not so nice. But if you go to in America, you go to, I don't know if you still have Whole Earth Foods or Trader Joe's or something. You go to some place and they have some nice organic fresh produce. You go to a produce market and you find some people who grew it themselves. Wow, that's really nice. That it tastes better. But then if you grow it yourself, or your devotee neighbor friend grew it himself, those vegetables, they just have the most amazing flavor because the way they were grown with that consciousness. And then, of course, if they're offered with love. In a similar note, I spoke with devotees who had prasadam. Brahmananda, I spoke to them about this a few times in Gargamuni. They had prasadam cooked by Srila Prabhupada and offered by Srila Prabhupada. And they said it was just completely different than anything else you can imagine. So there's a lot of things to be said about prasadam. It also depends on how powerful the deity is. For example, Jagannath, he's a self-manifested deity. He's a very ancient deity. We go to Jaipur and we see that the deity of Radha Govinda was worshipped by Rupa Goswami. He's a very powerful deity. He's the same deity that you may find, the same form of Krishna that you'll find in Loy Bazaar. Same form, but there's a difference. The difference is that he received the love of Rupa Goswami. And because of that love of Rupa Goswami, just like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that when Krishna receives the love of the gopis, then his beauty increases. It affects Krishna's form when the gopis offer their love. So when Rupa Goswamis worship that deity, or Sanatana Goswamis worship Madan Mohan, or Goswamis who worship Lord Jagannath, and we take prasadam from that deity, that's also a different thing. And then another consideration is our consciousness. And we may be very, very covered over. And so as Govinda Hari Prabhu is pointing out, we should be very conscious when we take prasadam. And therefore, I was mentioning, we start off saying sadhu sabadhan. Hey, wake up. What we're doing, you're not just sitting down to eat in a restaurant. We have to be conscious of what we're doing. It's a meditation. And therefore, you'll see sometimes photos of Srila Prabhupada. He would take prasadam sometimes facing the wall. He would turn to face, and he wouldn't talk at all. My Guru Maharaj, when he would take prasadam, he rarely would speak any. We don't generally follow that. We're from the West, and I sometimes we get the good fortune to take prasadam with Srila Shivaram Maharaj or Naranjan Maharaj or some exalted devotee, and we feel very happy. And sometimes, usually there's some discussion. That's our system. But many sadhus, when they're taking prasadam, it's just completely a whole absorption in the prasadam. And that's actually ideal. Out of some mercy on us, maybe they'll talk with us when they take prasadam. But the ideal thing, when we take prasadam, it's just like we're chanting japa. We're completely absorbed in that. So if we're not absorbed like that, then we start thinking that, yeah, gosh, they're giving me a lot of rice. When is the sweets going to come? Do they have any ice cream today? I like the sweets. And that's also why Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, he instructed the devotees, because he found out that the devotees would take certain items. They liked the sweets. They didn't care for the rice so much. And this and that. So Prabhupada told them to mix it all together. And there's some stories also from that, from one story from the Mahabharata. We printed in the magazine too. I won't go there now, but that we mix all the prasadam together, because sometimes some Vaishnavas do that because it's prasadam. It's not that the ice cream is better than the rice or the sabji. It's all absolute. But if we're tasting it for our material tongue, then we think ice cream is the best. The pasta is the best. It's better than this rice or this or that. Is that helpful, Viren Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, it is. I'm just, while you're making this last point, I was in Vrindavan last October, and I was having prasad with my aunt, Namachintamani, and I was also having a lot of things, and Nama was telling me, that's rasa bas. Just have the one thing and enjoy it. So somehow that's just that, that image of her, like telling me, no, that's rasa bas. Popped up in my mind.
It's the same thing with kirtan too. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to have devotees lead kirtan who were not very musical and whose voices were off key, just to make the point that Devotion is what's important. But then he also instructed sometimes that when we're doing kirtan for the outside public, it should be very nice musical, because that attracts them. And then especially if it's slow and kind of meditative, they think, oh, something's really happening. and so in a similar way, when prasadam is very, very tasty, and Prabhupada saw that. And Prabhupada would keep a jar of 𝙬𝙤𝙤𝙠 by the door. Prabhupada noted, he said, generally in India, prasadam means you go and you get a few pieces of rock candy or something in the temple, and that's prasadam. But Prabhupada said, in our movement, prasadam means full prasad. It means a full meal, because the Westerners really need that. It's like anything in Krishna consciousness. We need to contemplate very deeply in what we're doing and be very, very conscious of it. And when devotees are cooking in that way, that prasadam they make is amazing. I've heard stories about Jayananda Prabhu's cooking and the cooking of Jamuna, and how just amazing it was, and someone could taste that. We had some desire for that. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Krishna Khan, did you remember anything?
It's okay.
Okay. Govinda Hari Prabhu.
Lehet, hogy segítesz fordítani ki. Hogy Krishna Kunki, she will translate for me. It's a little bit late in my, hogy tavaly történt velem, hogy a farmon a Krishna völgyből vittem egy sárga réplát, egy pár sárga réplát, valami termény.
Last year I took a few carrots grown in 𝙬𝙬𝙗𝙗.
és csináltam egy dált.
And I made a dal.
Szóval ez egy másik helyen volt.
In a different place.
És utána, és így kóstoltam, és mondjam, miért ennyire különleges ez?
And I was respecting it, and I was wondering why this is so special.
Utána rájöttem, hogy nem a boltból volt ez a répa, hanem Krishna völgyből.
And then I remembered that this carrot was not from the shop, it was from Krishna Valley.
Annak ellenére, hogy én oda tartozom, vagy az a helyem, de nem sokat vagyok ott Krishna völgyben.
Although I belong to Krishna Valley, I don't really spend so much time there.
És akkor tudom így és akkor megértettem, hogy igen, amit mondott a Prabhu is, hogy ezt ott nevelik, nagy szeretettel, odaadással, dzsapáznak a bakták, Krishnának, Rádésának.
But devotees are making it in this consciousness, they are planting it, they are growing it in this consciousness, they are chanting, they are thinking about offering it to Krishna.
És amikor csak így egy más világba kerültem, amikor ugye felajánlottam Krishnának, és akkor meg tiszteltem a prasadam.
And when I offered it and respected that prasadam, it was really, taking me into a different world.
Szóval ez tényleg működik. Ez így van.
It indeed works.
Csak ezt szerettem volna megosztani, hogy volt egy nagyon nagy különbség így, hogy az alapanyagok, hogy milyen alapanyaghoz tudtunk hozzá.
I just wanted to share the difference, because I had this experience, what the difference is in the ingredients.
Szóval ez csodálatos.
So now all of you are very fortunate. You've got a personal invitation from a resident of New Brajadam to come to Hungary, a nice, loving, warm invitation. And I'll tell you, when you come here, you should try the carrots. You should just see. It's amazing, really, the things that grow. But not only that, if you come, you should make sure you get a bag of flour. Because the wheat flour that they grow, I'm serious. If you put a blindfold on, and you have a chapati made from some flour from the shop, and a chapati made from the flour in New Brajadam, even the most ignorant person could immediately tell there's a huge difference. It's just amazing, the wheat flour there. So you guys all have a personal invitation. You should come. Maybe while Krishna Kun and I are here also, we'd love to see you. Okay, so I think we should stop there. So far as I know, there's no problem for next week, right, Krishna Kun?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so we're on chapter 9. There's 12 chapters in the book. This chapter, we're gonna go a little bit slow. The next subject we're gonna be talking about is how the residents of Puri have 4 arms, And what does that mean? Because we really don't want 4 arms. And why is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates want to go to a place where everybody has 4 arms? That doesn't make any sense. And that may be a whole subject. Along with that, or maybe in the next class, we'll speak about how Jagannath Puri is connected with Vrindavan. And then in our class after that, it'll be chapter 10, we'll speak about 3 logs of wood. And how Jagannath has that particular form, which is a story I think all of you know probably quite a lot. I'm not sure how we'll do that. Maybe we'll read it. But definitely I want to go into some of our own personal research that we did about Radharani and Jagannath Puri, which I think Brahma Biharani at least is familiar with, and probably Mukunda too. You've seen our magazine on Hidden Identity of Lord Jagannath, Mukunda?
Yes, we have. Yes.
All right, so thank you all very much. Everybody's okay? Any other reflections or comments? Go ahead and finish. So today you're all very fortunate. You've been invited to come to Hungary and visit and have darshan and Radha.
Prabhuji, we will try our best to come hungry to Hungary.
You have to come hungry to Hungary. Shri Shri Radha Shyam Sundar Ji ki, Shri Shri Jagannath Darshan Ji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, for Premanandi. Mancha Kalpa Darubhishcha Kripa Sindhu